Next news story. Elden Ring has been patched yet again. Just been taking a look at the patch notes for version 1.12.3, and there are some things in here which are quite odd, and I don't really know how to describe this. Let's look at the PlayStation 5 note. For the PlayStation 5 version of the game, unstable frame rate may be improved by using the quote-unquote rebuild database option from the device's safe mode. Now, this is sort of like reminds me, and maybe this strikes a chord with you, Alex, of the kind of random advice given that apparently improves performance but doesn't actually do anything of the sort.
It really does seem like that. Isn't this this is, I swear I've had this happen on my PS5 when it doesn't power up right. And you have to rebuild the database. This seems like something that should really have almost nothing to do with the game's install. It's really, I have no idea what, I mean, the reason why it feels like that to me is because like a console is like a standard device, and the only people responsible for the database corruption are like the users, but that doesn't explain any of the things that we talked about in our videos. So like if people were having like save loading issues or something like that, that's not exactly what I would imagine this is about. But like, I feel like this issue that they're describing is them talking about something else, but they include it as part of the patch notes in the performance section to wave off everyone saying that there's some sort of performance issue. Like, I really don't think this has anything to do with like the game's performance. Like, it shocked me.
It's actually been called out by Lance McDonald. And he said that feature, the rebuild database feature, has absolutely no way to affect gameplay or performance at all. It's like when you call your ISP about slow internet and they tell you to try deleting cookies. And he explains what the rebuild database function actually does. It's useful in cases where an installed game disappears for some reason, possibly due to a significant firmware upgrade version jump. It just scans the hard drive for missing games and adds the icon back to the dashboard, which is certainly the most interesting 60 frames per second performance mode option I've heard of. Yeah, and again, you know, the PC stuff. Please verify the integrity of the game's files before restarting the game. Here's the thing: people obviously, you know, talk about verifying the game's files, but this has never fixed a performance issue for me. I mean, basically, files are kind of binary, right? They either work, they're correct, or they're corrupted and they don't work. I don't see how this would have an impact on performance. Am I missing something here?
Verifying game files on Steam has the things it fixes for me is a game doesn't launch.
Yes.
Like, because it's missing a file or a file's corrupted for some reason, so it doesn't launch. Games usually just don't launch,
yes.
In my experience with that. I think the other thing that I want to mention here is their reference to, in the PC version, unstable frame rate may be caused by third-party applications that control mouse behavior. Deactivating these third-party applications may improve performance. Number one, I want to say that all of the footage I did for my video was done on recently installed Windows with no mouse control applications other than whatever default Windows has. So the mouse settings option in what is formerly known as the control panel. Literally nothing else. Not even super high DPI mice there for the one PC at least. So I feel like this scapegoating of things that may have an issue that they can reproduce is once again like a deflection for the real issues that the game has. And they're kind of, I don't like using the phrase always, but they're kind of like gaslighting, saying like, oh yeah, you know, actually the problem is all on your end. And it's definitely, that's why it's happening. And when you don't actually talk about, like, you address the issues that are brought about by the community, instead you say the issue is this, please do this. That's putting the onus on the user and not actually on the developer at that point. And I feel like this is just really bad form. And I think it shows me that they're probably not going to do anything to change the game. on either system.
There was some patches made at the beginning of Elden Ring, which you pointed out in the video, but nothing's really substantially changed since then at all, really, has it?
Yeah, there was the fix basically for broken shader compilation for the first 10 to 20 minutes of the game, like where that's something that Valve commented on actually in their original communique with you, I believe, Rich, where they said like there is shader compilation that occurs, but it isn't touched correctly. Essentially, like they weren't referencing the real like shaders that were compiled or something like that. So it was doing it, but it wasn't actually working. So I think they fixed that after the initial patch post-launch, and that's when we did the video about Steam Deck after that. They have touched performance issues before, but the core ones remain, and I think this just shows me that they don't want to do anything about it.
I think we need to take a look at Armored Core on PC at some point, Armored Core 6, because that did seem to show some improvement.
That's where I played it.
Yeah,
right. They managed to do ultra wide there. They managed to do arbitrary frame rates.
Yep.
I don't know if it does it go to any frame rate.
Actually, I don't know if it's arbitrary. I just ran it at 120, but it definitely supports high frame rates.
Yeah, it supports high frame rates. So there's something someone did right. I mean, I wonder if this is a situation like where there's different teams working on things.
I'm sure
I presume they are. Yeah, because I remember Dark Souls 2's PC port was like such a huge upgrade over Dark Souls 1, where it started to really look like they knew what was going on. And then Dark Souls 3 was like slightly regressive. So I'm really curious if these are just different teams inheriting things and then also having different like leads that are prioritizing things differently. I don't know, because Elden Ring for me feels, based upon your descriptions, John, regressive in comparison to Armored Core.
Big time. Armored Core is awesome on PC.
Yeah, I think there's got to be an end to this concept of just providing BS sort of advice to users to improve performance where, it doesn't stand up to the most basic scrutiny, and it just does feel like, you're being waved off, hand waving away fundamental issues with your game. It's just not good enough.
Thinking about performance, though, the younger generation maybe won't be so hard to fool. I had a proud dad moment yesterday where my son was, he came to get me and said, "Dad, there's something wrong with my PC." He's like, "What's going on?" So I go up, he's like, "The mouse movement is so choppy. I can't play games like this. This is horrible." I was like, "What? Okay, what's going on?" So I checked. His monitor had set itself back to 60 hertz. And I was like, "Here, I switched it back to 165 for him." And he's like, "Oh, thank God, it's much better." And he was like, "Oh, I can't play games like this." He didn't understand why or what any of that meant. He was just like, "This is bad."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mouse movement at 60 hertz, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. He knows the camera movement in his game. He's like, this is so choppy. He's like, my FPS is bad. What's going on?
Did he try verifying files?
No, he did not try verifying files.
Were there any third-party mouse softwares installed?
Nope, nothing.